been there the whole time. Just keep looking up and open up your eyes. Don't get lost in a crowd. You were made to stand out. The Wonder Creative Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wonder Creative Podcast. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for hanging out. I have a really good episode for you today. I sat down with my friend Rachael Cunningham, which is famously known as True or Eden or True Eden. She owns a tattoo studio in Franklin, Tennessee called True Eden. And we joke because a lot of people seem to think that her name is True or Eden. But her name is Rachael Cunningham, and she's a wonderful, wonderful soul. I've known Rachael, I want to say for a decade. We lived in the same town for a while, and we've just always kind of kept up with each other even after we moved away, just kind of observing each other online. We've both started businesses since then. And so anyway, she was one of the first people that I wanted to have on this podcast. And so I just have so much respect for her. She is consistently booked out in her business. She only opens her books 2 times a year. She's very structured and has a very unique vision for her business. And it's something that I really respect. So if you are, a fellow creative entrepreneur, you're definitely going to want to listen to this episode because we do talk a lot about this balance between being the art or being the artist and then also being a business owner and what that looks like and how to function in both of those roles. We also talk a lot about some deeper heart things when it comes to business and how we can approach our business as followers of Jesus and really being led by the Spirit, which I really loved that conversation. And that's something that I want to highlight pretty regularly on the show because I feel like a lot of people struggle in that area. I feel like that's a topic that we need to explore. And so she shares a really beautiful story that I think brings a lot of clarity to how we can involve Holy Spirit and the values and ways of Jesus in our businesses. And then she is also a huge mental health advocate. Has such a beautiful story and a beautiful testimony, and she shares a little bit about it on the show. And we kind of talk about some things that she does with her business to really support people that are facing depression, anxiety, self-harm, a lot of that. And it's just a really beautiful, hope-filled conversation. So I hope you guys enjoy, and thanks for joining me today. I also just want to throw in here, sorry, I'm editing and I felt like I needed to include this in the podcast, but just wanted to give a trigger warning. We do talk about some mental health related topics like depression and anxiety. Rachael talks about her journey through those things, as well as suicide. It's a very hope-filled conversation about these things, but I also just wanted to provide that warning for anyone that is sensitive or has history with these things before we get into the episode, just so you know what to expect. So, I'm very excited that you're here. It's been a long time since we've actually talked, so this is really fun. But I just would love for you to kind of introduce yourself to everyone listening. I know probably a lot of my listeners actually do follow you and know who you are, but maybe some don't. So if you don't mind to just tell us who you are and what you do, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Hi, Chloe.
Hi.
My name is Rachael Cunningham. I own True Eden Studio. It's a tattoo studio. And that's what I'm most known for. People think that my name is True or Eden. So they don't always know that my name is Rachael and that I'm another human being.
Yeah.
But so that's the main thing that I do. It feels like the gateway that changed my life, but it's the whole purpose is that I love making things. And so I've been able to see my work translate onto skin. And right now that's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's the thing that I do. And it took a long time to get here, but I'm very grateful for the business that I've grown, mostly alone, but I couldn't have done it without the people. Tattooers are this weird craft and corner of the artistic industry and creative industry, in the fact that our work can't be completed or successful without another human being and being involved. So it's communal by nature, and it's required parts of me to heal by sitting with people doing the thing that I love doing, but also watching it walk out the door and doing it with another person's skin. So it's been very strange as an artist to go from a tactile piece of paper or something that I could physically see to knowing that I might never see it again. And seeing how communal and human it is. It's a very interesting niche, like little part of art, and I feel made for it. And I also know that it doesn't mean it's the only way that I'll do this for the rest of my life, but I'm so grateful that right now I get to own this business and create it the way that I have.
I mean, just everything you just said were things that I never really thought about whenever you're a tattoo artist. Like the fact that I mean, obviously you're putting your art on someone else's body, but the fact that you're like, I'm doing this and then I may never see it. Like, it's just kind of like, it is what it is. And now it's like a part of someone else's story. Like, that's actually very wild to think about, because if you're going from paper to tattoo. So like, what was that switch for you of like, because I've never even thought to ask a tattoo artist, like, what made you decide that you wanted to do that instead of pursuing art in another form or another medium where it's more like print or fine art or something like that? Like, what made you pursue tattoos?
Well, first off, I remember growing up, there was always like this echo towards artists. And I don't even remember someone tangibly saying it to me, but I remember knowing you can't make a career out of being an artist. I remember hearing that or feeling
Me too.
it.
Yeah.
This
Or like
is
the starving artist mentality, like you're always going to struggle. Yeah.
like this is all for like personal joy. You can never make a thing out of this. And the rare people who do, like, it's going to be too hard. I just remember hearing that kind of over and over. Even the art classes, it's like, this is an elective fun class. Like there wasn't this direction of like, you'll be a real professional, successful person if you go this direction.
Wow.
So in my mind, it never really was something that I saw translating into that direction. I had done art my entire life. It was like one of the safest places I've ever been is when I was making something. I started to have severe anxiety when I was about 12, and I stopped letting people see my art. I did art as a source of joy. And then all of a sudden, I remember this reality hit me that I'm so afraid of what's happening inside of me, and it's too vulnerable. And when I make something, I'm showing them what I'm thinking. I'm showing them what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And that exchange didn't feel worth it to me at that time. So I decided to stop letting people see what I made. And I did that for years, and I just denied the part of me that wanted to make things, that I saw things differently, that I was seeing colors differently, that I was seeing like the forms of lines differently. It's just the way my mind thought. But I kind of just kept denying it as an identity of me. And so this is a little bit of a longer story, but it's...
No, I love it. Please.
When I met you, even during that period of time, were kind of the breaking point of that anxiety, that depression, the trauma. I couldn't hide anything that had happened anymore. And I was struggling so deeply and really trying to outsource my life. So I was trying to find anything outside of myself that could numb the inside of myself. And I was reaching for every single thing I could possibly find.
Yeah.
And nothing was working. And so I got to 25 and I really struggled with depression and suicide. And I had attempted to take my life at that point. And I felt this like very clear urge that I had to fight one more time, like to live. And so I went to my parents. I told them everything I'd been struggling with. And within a month of graduating my master's, I went to a treatment center, a rehab center.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like my last fight. And I got there, and one of our courses was art therapy. And so I went into this course every day, and it just became like this safe place. And I just kept diving in. I was like, okay, if I show up, what if I do the opposite of what 12-year-old me said was the safest thing to do? And so I went in every day, and I pushed past the discomfort of people seeing what was happening. And in doing so, I started to see that, like, actually the greatest strength of who I am is when I let people see what's happening inside. And it
Mm.
actually helps me alleviate some of that anxiety that I'm feeling. It
Yeah.
allows the things pent up to be outward. And so I just started doing it. And it was like a river. And then I got home, and I was like, wait, how do I do this when I'm not in this safe, protected environment that's let me do this thing?
Right. Yeah.
And um, I was starting to show people my art in Cleveland. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to let people see that, like, my mind does think like this. And a group of friends saw my art and were like, Rachel, you'd be a great tattooer. We'll let you teach yourself on our skin if you want.
Oh my gosh.
And so, in an effort to help me feel something and connect with
Mm.
something, care about something, and they had no idea, like, the depth of what they were doing. It was more just
Right.
pure lighthearted thing. I started teaching myself, and I would never recommend that route for anyone because it's an industry that should be done the right way.
Totally.
But I was just self-taught. And the second I started, I remember feeling like it will be really hard for someone to take this machine out of my hands. I don't think I can put this down lightly. It feels right. So my journey has felt like so pure,
Mm-hmm.
and then I denied it. And now it feels very pure again, but now there's a business next to it. So
Yeah.
I have to keep the purity as much as I can.
Yes.
Um, or I'll forget. Like, I can never deny why I'm even doing it in the first place. I think it would be detrimental to me and definitely my clients, like, if I forget that this means more than just a piece of art to me.
Yeah.
That's the
Wow.
story.
That's a beautiful story. So many different aspects of that I feel like I even myself can relate to from an artist standpoint, even from a business standpoint, like what you were talking about, like keeping the purity of what you do and like, I guess like kind of managing like the art and the business side. And we'll get into that in a minute. But I just really commend you even for just being brave and pushing through anxiety, the depression, all of that, like that darkness that could have easily like taken the art from you and taken um this this act like this thing that accesses joy inside of your heart, like it could have taken that from you, but you were brave and you pushed through. And I just think it's beautiful how it's all unfolded. So can you tell me how you manage being an artist and owning a business, and how you actually developed the name True Eden, how you developed even like your business model, for lack of a better term? Like, I've just noticed how you are very intentional about how you book your clients and all of that. So I would love to kind of hear, if you don't mind sharing a little bit of that, like
Yeah.
background stuff.
When I started tattooing, I knew I wanted to do it forever, but I was like, I'm never going to make this my thing. To me, the only way to preserve it was to always do it casually.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I was like, the second this becomes a business, I will have
You'll
to
hate
change.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, everything will change, and I just don't want to deal with that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my goal. So I tattooed for like probably like 2 years, just
Okay.
doing it. And I was just like doing it on the side. And then I moved after the first year. And I was like, okay, no one knows me here in Nashville. Like, how is this isn't going to keep going? I'm
Mm.
not in this small town where like everyone kind of just was excited to help me. And so when I moved here, I just kind of had told like a couple friends that I met. I was like, oh yeah, like I tattooed a little bit. And then all of a sudden, like wildfire, they just started telling people. And I didn't know how to take what they were expecting of me and actually put it into a business in the beginning. But I was
Mm.
just seeing that every time I had an opportunity to work, people kept asking for pieces. And so I kind of slowly could feel this like reverence and this I wanted to do things the right way. And all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks. Is like, this doesn't have to be something you just get away with. Like, you're
Mm.
not in survival anymore. You can do this and you can actually not feel ashamed doing it. Like, there doesn't have to be any shame. You can feel worthy of being there. And so I had tattooed for like 2 years. I stopped tattooing, and I really was just praying, like, okay, I need someone to come in and believe in what's started here and help me finish it. And
Mm.
so I had a tattooer that it was a longtime friend of mine who reached out, and I didn't tell him that I was looking to get an apprenticeship or anything like that. And he offered to apprentice me. And
Wow.
it was beautiful, like, it's such a difficult industry to get into. So for someone to say, I actually see you, I believe in you, this is enough. Like, this is more than
Yeah.
enough. I'm going to help you. So that started the beginning stages of me being like, okay, if this becomes real, I have to care in every way.
Yeah.
Like, the boundaries have to be there. I have to protect this thing. And at that point, I had really learned what I wasn't liking, that I didn't love how tattooing has become a thing where we're in the service side. So people
Mm-hmm.
expect that we should do anything that comes. And because of that, it's like, well, you're a service provider. Just do this thing I want. And I was like, I don't feel joy with that. It actually like makes, I can't take money and do something that's going to be permanently on someone that I don't consider to be good. Like, I just cannot do it.
Mm.
And there were times I didn't listen to myself and I did it anyway. And those are the times I considered quitting. I remember the tattoos that I said yes because I was too afraid to say no. And that's why my boundaries came into play, because I felt disconnected. I felt no connection or intimacy with the person, like friend, like there was no relationship there because it was
Mm.
only financial and I was too
Yeah.
afraid. So I was really praying and praying, and I was like, okay, well, what is the name of this thing? Like, what is the name? I wanted to know, like, what was this called? Like, if I was to name my healing and this thing that like
Mm.
brought me back to life, what was the name, and what does it have purpose for other people coming in? And
Mm.
so I just kept like, I really wanted it to be like two words that were the same length and like same letters in it,
Mm-hmm.
number of letters. And I just kept pondering, like, when I was in treatment, what kept like facing me towards going home, like in the best way. And it was like that the truth of everything I'd always been searching for was in Eden, like true Eden,
Mm.
true Eden. So I just, that name fell into place. And once I felt it and heard it, I was like, yeah, I'm not going back from there. Um,
Wow.
so I've been tattooing now for 6.5 years, and 4 of them have been licensed. And I only named True Eden though like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right
Wow.
before COVID. Right before COVID, I named it True Eden, and I made the Instagram, and I had no idea what would come, and that it would become, that I was making like a new version of the industry, like
Yeah.
my own version. I wasn't just I wasn't in a shop, so there was no one for me to like mimic. I was saying, well, I actually really want to honor my clients more than I want to equally honor each other. And there is a
Mm.
way to do.
Yes.
So it has been a journey for sure. Um, and now I'm in a space where I'm realizing what boundaries I have to give myself to make sure True Eden isn't the only thing I love about myself. And
Mm.
connect in a healthy way from that mindset that it's the best thing I've ever done and it's the only good thing I'll do. And I have to give it everything of me, and trying to find a balance so that I can come home and also feel safe and also feel good. So
Yeah.
that's the arc over into what I am at now.
Yeah. And it's like you bring up a really good point of like this. I was talking to actually someone the other day about how we can make an aspect of ourselves like our entire identity. And I was like, there was a point even with Wonder Creative where I was like, I am Wonder Creative, like it is me, like we are one. And it actually was really terrible because I was putting like, yes, of course, like I throw myself into what I do. And a lot of what you're talking about, like honoring my clients and, there is a lot of heart behind what I do. I don't just do it for money. I don't just, yes, of course I provide for my family. And like, I also do it because like I'm passionate about it and I care about everything that I create. So, a lot of my value is wrapped up in what I do, just like what you're talking about with like when you tattoo. And so I think that brings up a good point for people that own businesses that are like creative business or it's like an extension of their heart. Like that's something you really have to like have some solid boundaries around because it can get really messy and you can start to feel like, okay, how many clients I have is my worth, or how much is in my bank account is my worth, or if is my business succeeding? Okay, then I'm succeeding. If my business is failing, okay, then I'm failing. Like
Yeah.
these things are not true. They're not
Yeah.
true. I love how you've approached your business, and it's something that I've admired just from seeing what you do online. How did you like? Did you feel pressure to fit in a certain mold, or were you just like, I know you talked about like kind of that thought that you had whenever you're like, this has to be different, but like, were you afraid to do that? Were you afraid to kind of approach it in a totally different way and worried about what people would think?
Um, I think from the beginning, I felt shielded from the thought that like anyone saw me. So I didn't feel like compared to the industry at all. So in that first 2 years was kind of like this blissful ignorance of like, I'm making it my own little thing, but also like I'm not licensed. So like I can't compare, you're not comparing me to a shop. Then when I got licensed, I felt an immediate like, wait, there's a standard here that I've never had to follow and I want to
Mm,
honor it. I
mm,
believe in like tattooing is a niche craft and it's one of the rare niche crafts that's actually mandated by the state to have a license for. And it's self-taught. So we all teach the next person. So you don't go to a school, you go
yeah.
and taught hand for a year or whatever the
Mm,
mandate of the state is. You sit with a human being and it's like one of those crafts that we are handing down and hoping continues over and over. So I didn't want to take my entrance in as like a pass that like I was just going to disregard the history.
mm-hmm.
So I found this like difficulty in the center of it of, well, I really want to honor God. I want to honor my story. I want to honor people's story that are with me. And how can I do all of that with integrity and make sure that I'm I make every piece hoping I get to see them in 10 years and be proud of
Mm,
what I make. I don't want to make something, not do it well, and hope I never see them again. Do you know, like there's just this concept of tattooing, you're turning people in and out. Oh, like all day you're just trying to get work, 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 work. And in that, you most likely like the person doesn't even remember who tattooed them, and the tattooer definitely doesn't remember who they tattooed. And it's just like get them out, get them out, get them out. And so I was like, well, I'm doing a private studio setting where it will take a little bit to get there, but I'm going to design something for you. You don't have to give me anything besides what you want to feel, and I'm going to try and come up with something for you. So a lot of the reason that has been successful is by making very clear boundaries, which people didn't like.
yeah, I'm kind of getting that vibe, that it was like something that people had to kind of come around to.
Yeah, it's been interesting because actually most of the boundaries I've set are not foreign. It's just there's if a majority of the tattooers in a town are saying like, come on, come all, come one, come all, we're gonna do whatever comes. Like
Mm-hmm.
we won't question anything, DM us, do whatever. The one person who says, actually, like my mental health matters to me, I'll show up my best if these things matter to you.
Mm,
But it looks like the one difference of someone who's prideful, or I get perceived in many ways as like prideful, or I think I'm better than someone. And I'm like, No, I'm actually so deeply humbled by how many people are here. It makes me feel so human and childlike, and I feel overwhelmed actually. And I've done my best now to say, I don't want to approach my work being overwhelmed, so I'm going to set boundaries to how you get here. It's pretty simple, like as a business to me, but in that transaction, I don't get to sit with each person and share my heart. So
Mm.
I've watched this business grow, and the weird thing about, again, my industry is no matter how much, like how many people are watching me, so the amount of people watching and wanting, the desire has grown, my output has not grown. I cannot make more.
Mm.
I physically, as a human being, can only make money if I physically
Mm.
touch a skin. And if anything, I'm making less than I ever have, but I'm doing bigger pieces or whatever that is. So the growth of numbers, all people feel is, well, I'm not getting what I want here.
Mm.
Instead of looking at an artist and saying, wow, like I would love to get something someday, but I want to view this like a portfolio. I want to look at this gallery that she's making and be just proud and grateful. But it's like people want to consume what I have, but what I make is me.
Mm-hmm.
They're parts
Yeah.
of me. So I want to fully show up. I don't know if I fully answered your question. I went a couple different directions, but that's been the hardest part of this business is in order to make a space for yourself, often you're compared to the space that's been made before you.
Mm.
And I just know that what I need and what life has brought me here, I feel joy in this little carved space I've made. And I fought like hell to feel joy again. And I'm going to make this space good. And
Mm.
that's all I can do for myself. And in doing that, I'm actually like having higher integrity and honoring my clients more by honoring myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also recognizing I can do that and not just identify with that person.
Yeah.
I'm not, just because I'm called true doesn't mean that I am true, Eden, even though
Yeah.
it's hard when like I am true, Eden. I'm the only one here,
Exactly. Yeah.
but I'm not. Um, yeah, I think that's been my biggest lesson is true Eden's not the best thing about me,
Mm.
and that like I am like the heart of the best thing about true Eden is me,
Yes.
not the best part of
Mm.
me is true Eden. It's the other way around.
Oh, that's so good.
The same thing for you. Like the best part of Wonder Creative is you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're the difference here.
What is the best part of you, would you say?
Like personally.
Yeah. You can interpret it however you want.
Okay.
Like, what are things outside of True Eden that you feel maybe people don't see but are such a big part of you?
The thing I'm probably most proud of is I'm clean and sober for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so it's my timeline of tattooing and my timeline of freedom are the same. They're just
Mm-hmm.
6 months apart. So that 6 months I figured out how to live again is when I started tattooing, and my whole life. Those 6 months I was still figuring out if I wanted to be free. And the second I started tattooing, I never thought about it again.
Mm.
And so it feels like that's the root. That's my heartbeat. I feel like my life started over 7 years ago.
Wow.
And it's the thing I'm most proud of, that I made the harder but better decision.
Yeah.
And I keep making it over and over again. And then I think that my favorite thing about myself is my ability to understand people
Yes.
and approach things while never denying what I know about life, and like taking wisdom, like trying to like sit and listen to someone who walks a completely different path than me, but knowing both of our paths, our goals are to get home. Our goals are to feel safe again. And so I think that's my favorite thing. And then tattooing has made it a beautiful way for me to do that often with people.
Yeah.
But yeah, my ability to understand. I think it's because my deepest desire is to be understood, and I rarely feel it.
Wow. Yeah.
So maybe I've like stretched that muscle a little bit more because I'm like Someday I'm going to be fully understood.
Yeah. I mean, like I was saying before we started recording, like I always felt like you just kind of like knew, like you got me, like you understood me in this, like, you know, some of the conversations we would have like years ago. And I think that is a superpower. And I think that's amazing that you can share that with your clients, because I think that those are the kinds of things that you can't like itemize on paper, when you're when
Yeah.
you're talking to a client. It's like, I'm gonna like, how do you tell someone that that's the kind of experience that you give to them, through this like intense process of someone putting a needle in your skin over and over and over, like how do you explain that? It just comes by them like trusting you and you just having this connection. And then, now you've created this whole culture where I'm sure that that's probably one of the reasons why people come to you, and you're so like highly recommended, at least from what I can see. I mean, y'all, like for anyone that doesn't know, like her books are just like always full all the time. And I have friends all the time. I'm like, I tried to get on her books this year and I did it. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, she's a hot commodity. But and then like you have like 30,000 followers on it. Do you do on Instagram? Do you do TikTok, or are you just like
I don't.
Okay.
I actually like created the Instagram and I really didn't want to make it. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to follow anyone. I was like, I'm not going to make this, because I hate that feeling as an artist of like, we have to strive to always convince people that it's worthy of looking at. So I was like,
Yes.
I'm going to rebel against the algorithm. I'm not going to follow anyone except for myself.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to sit my thing. And like, if you want to view this gallery, I've made a collection of art I'm making. Watch it.
Yeah.
And I made it like that for like the first 2.5 years. And it just kept like growing. It also was perfect that COVID happened around the same time, where it was like everyone was obsessing over tattoos and the things that they've been waiting for their whole life.
Yes. What a weird season that
What a
was.
weird time. Oh gosh. Yeah,
It was like one of the best seasons for my business, and there are things like tanking. We haven't left our house, but my business is going great. So I'm like,
oh
okay.
my gosh. I literally watched my business like triple. I had never
Yeah.
closed books before. So I just hired an assistant to help me with my booking and scheduling.
Okay.
And then I think that was like the first week of March. And then
Uh-huh.
like within 2 weeks, I have no one to book, but I have 180 people waiting to be scheduled that are waiting. Now they're going to be backlogged. Then all these people started emailing being like, when this is over, I want a tattoo. I want a tattoo. I want a tattoo. And I was like, I can't say yes until I've completed what I said yes to. And so that was the biggest boundary I ever made that started, I think, the mystery of why people kind of wanted to follow me was when I closed my books the first time and said, it was my first like test of integrity. Like, will I just commit myself to a year of work because they're all here? Or will I honor these like 100 people who this will be like such a joy for them after COVID, for all of us to spend time together? And I want to focus on this peep group I said yes to. And I cried to my assistant. And I was like, I can't close them though. No one will be here when I open them again. I was so convinced my business was over. But I did it anyway. And then when I came back, I've never had my books open again. They're always closed. And then I open them twice a year for about like 2 minutes.
Wow.
Which has transition. So like my year is full from about 8 minutes of booking.
Wow.
Which is just like, yeah. I feel so uncomfortable saying it, but I'm saying it to say I started in a basement. Like I started in a basement when I got back from rehab. And now I have a business, the most inconsistent industry you can imagine.
Yeah.
I'm able to say, basically, I have a committed salary for a year.
Yeah.
And all I have to do is say my books are open and someone wants it.
Wow.
Like as an artist, as a person, that is the most like, I can't explain the joy I feel knowing that that many people want something from me,
Yeah.
it humbles me beyond measure. I feel unworthy and worthy of it at the same time. I feel proud and
Mm.
scared, but I show up every day
Yeah.
and I do my best. And yeah, True Eden's
Wow.
my little baby. I
Yes.
love that's my little baby.
I mean, and like you get to enjoy it because like this is one of the things, like this is one of the qualms I have with that I see like when creatives run their business. It's like they just want to appeal to everyone. They want to take on every client. They want to do all the things. And like I know it's probably from like a poverty mindset. You're thinking like this is the only client you're going to get, or what if there's not another one after this, or so you're just like trying to get what you can get. And I totally understand that. But it's like what you were talking about when you have to make the hard decision of, do I really want to not only honor my clients, but like honor my process, honor my like creativity? Am I like, is this really the kind of client that I want and that I would want more of? Like, cause that's something that I had to like really check. Um, Whenever I first started my business, I had to turn away clients that I was like, I don't work with non-creative businesses. So I just I would turn them away, and or for a little while I only worked with photographers because like that's what I felt like I was really good at. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get more photography clients. So I was only taking on photographers. And I had to like I understood that I was still in that building stage of my business, and it's a portfolio for me. And
Yeah.
it's not just a service that I'm providing for money. Like I'm trying to build the culture of what I want Wonder Creative to be. And it's really tough to manage like the creative and the business and all that stuff. So that's good that you have like an assistant that helped you or helps you with bookings and stuff like that. I'm sure that helps like keep you sane and keeps you like able to thrive creatively.
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I
awesome.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine working without her. But also I had this meeting with someone during COVID, like a business manager person was just talking to me, and he was like, "You're at a point right now where why would you ever do anything than the thing that they're paying you for?" Like
Yep.
if it is that high of gravity, like people are paying for you to design and tattoo something on their skin, and it only costs you a fragment of each appointment for them to be scheduled by someone else, and you're going to get that much relief
Yeah.
and emotional space to think about them do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being like, yeah. And also I had scheduled the last time I scheduled 3 people for the same time and they all showed up. And I was like, I don't think I could do that. I'm not good at this at all. So recognizing that I could survive doing something,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to live there forever. I can't do it. So there was such a balance of when you're starting something. I noticed this with a lot of photographers too. Say a lot of photographers, what's the most consistent form of work as a photographer? Weddings.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of photographers are like, but that's not what I fully want to do.
Right. Yeah.
Creative, I want to do this. And some people stop this flow so quickly and they're like, well, I have to do what I love doing. And I couldn't have gotten to what I loved doing unless I did the 2 years of learning what I loved
Mm.
and being consistent enough to build up. There's such a
Mm-hmm.
balance of
Yeah.
really know how to say fully no when you've learned the lesson, usually.
Yeah.
It's those ones where you're like, actually, yeah, this is outside of the best of me. And yeah, turning things down is probably one of the strangest things in a form of art where most people, I'm so happy you work with creative people because they should understand this then.
Mm-hmm.
But the non-creative people, they don't know how to take that because it's like they consider creative as we're always waiting to say yes to something.
Yeah.
Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like we're
Yes.
in a state of desperation all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm actually gonna be okay without this because you're
Right.
gonna be a headache. Like
Yes.
literal
Yes.
headache to do this
Yes.
for.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I think the best clients are ones that already like know a little bit of my process and kind of already like honor that, and they'll, like you can just get a vibe like from the
Oh,
very beginning.
I feel like a master detective at this point where I'm just like, I know. I can read, I'm reading between the lines, and this is going to be cuckoo. I can't do this. I
Yeah.
can't. Yeah, it's
Yes.
hard.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And I was listening to someone talk about this, and it's something that I've talked a lot about on the podcast, but like something that I feel like, again, someone that isn't creative would think about a creative is like we are simply what we produce.
Yeah.
But we produce because we think and see the world a certain way. And like that's kind of like that's a part of the process. That's a part of when someone works with me, they're not just like, yes, I'm going to give you a logo, and yes, I'm going to give you a brand and all the things, and I'm going to make your website and it's going to be magical. But like what, again, one of those things you can't really like itemize is like my lived experience, my unique like perspective on art and creativity and what inspires me. Like it very much is how I am my mind and the work of my hands. Like it's not just, I can't just do it and people like,
Yeah.
just give me a logo. And I'm like, no, I won't
That's
because and that's like the integrity thing, what you're talking about, how you're like, I will not just give you an infinity tattoo. Like I won't do it. And that's
literally.
how I feel about logos. I'm like, I won't just give you a logo because I don't feel like that's what you need or that's what's good for you. Like I feel like you need a whole brand to really be successful. And so that's what I do. And if you want a logo, then like find somebody else that's good at that. Like that can just do a logo, but that's not me.
Everything we're saying comes back to learning who you are. Like
Yes.
actually knowing who you are enough to know what will be life-giving, what will actually partner with what your business is. And again, I find so many people have like set their hopes on like, you make a logo for me, like that's what I want, or Rachel, I want the infinity sign. And I'm like, that's great. I don't excel at that. I'm actually, it's not even about skill level, but like I have so much in me, and I've, you're asking for my brain, my creativity, my heart, and my hand to do something for you.
Right. Yeah.
And I have the capacity to do more. There is a person down the street who loves doing that. And you
Yes.
can walk in right now, they will do it for you. That's what they excel at. They love it. Go there. And being able to know like I care for you enough to say go there. They
Yeah.
love this. They will do
Yes.
whatever you want. But if you want someone to think for you and take your heart and put it into a visual, I'm your girl. Chloe's your girl. You know what I'm saying? It's always been wild being a maker of anything.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you kind of answered this, but like, what do you think is something that people misunderstand about what you do? Like, we've already, if there's anything you'd want to add to that, maybe more specific to tattooing, or like when people come in to get a tattoo, maybe they expect something and then it's like, oh, they're going to, like, this is unexpected for them because this is totally unique to what I do, or like, however you want to
Yeah.
interpret that.
Um, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but one of the things I didn't realize would be so difficult. One of the things when I was an artist before, and every time I've made art my whole life, I refuse to sell it or give it away. Like I have a really hard time with something I've made being taken. Like it always felt like I had to hoard it.
Hmm.
And so I think it's so funny that I've fallen into an industry where I can never keep what I make. It has to walk out the door. And I don't think people realize, one, like how much I have to kind of grieve the fact that I might never see this piece of art again. And I do get that little poverty mentality sometimes when I've done a wonderful piece I'm so proud of, and they're about to walk out the door and I'm like, will I ever make something I love again like that? I can feel this kind of like, I think I know tattooers who do not think like that at all. It is theirs. It's the other person's the second it's on their skin. They feel like the river is always flowing. Nothing feels like that intimate. But for me, it feels like my fingerprints on it. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of insecurity and fear. And I do feel like this little sense of mourning some days where I'm just like, oh gosh, I just ran a marathon. I just have like a trauma bond with this thing a little bit. And dang, it's gone. Like this beautiful piece of work is gone. And I hope I make something I love again like that.
Mm.
So that's just like my like a little peculiarity of me. I think that I'm often misunderstood, or the misunderstanding of the industry. I'm so used to being in a shop that I forget how nervous people are, how nervous it is to go into a shop. And that and I try to remind the tattooers around me as well. Most people don't give themselves anything. Like the most consistent thing people give themselves is maybe like a week vacation a year.
Yeah.
And then for them to save money, and maybe for one time a year they do something just for themselves and they come into a shop to get a tattoo. And so like that space of how much anxiety goes into that, the mystery of tattooers that just like lingers. There's this big misunderstanding, which was valid for years, is that tattooers are not kind. And I think it's shifting. Like it's really hard to be an a-hole.
You can say it. You can say it.
It's really hard to be an ass
Yeah.
in this industry and get away with it because Instagram now.
Yeah.
So
You're going to get
I
canceled.
think that you're going to get canceled, literally. And so, yeah, I don't feel pressure from that reality. I feel grateful that if someone's going to give themselves one thing, pay hundreds of dollars for it, it's going to be there forever, that they're coming into my space and that I have the opportunity to make them feel safe and remember this day. And that is the thing I can't explain. Unless you're in there or word of mouth, I'm not going to put out a video and be like, this is the difference about me. I'm kind. I'm understand. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It only is known if you experience it. And
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you that, like, this is how you're going to feel when you come to me.
Right.
Because everyone feels different. So I think that my biggest personal misconception is that I think people think I'm much more stoic than I actually am. Because of the boundaries. I think people think that I'm like really, really like, when they come in, I'm going to be so boundary. And I'm like, no, the boundaries end when you've honored them. And the second you come in, you've already honored them.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
you haven't made it into my studio until those things are honored and I've honored them in you. And the second you come in, it's like fun. We just like enjoy it. We have joyful time. We cry. We do anything. But that's probably the biggest thing people recognize when they come is like they breathe and they realize, oh, I already honored this person. She feels honored. And I show up full. I show up full myself. So, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And even with boundaries, like people, I know some people get really scared of that, but like, and again, another thing I've talked about on the podcast before, but like, think of like a cup of water. If you really want a cup of water and it doesn't have any boundaries, it's going to spill all. When you go to pour a pitcher of water into the cup, you're not going to get any water. It's going to go all over the floor because you don't have boundaries. When it's time for things to be poured out, you need a vessel. And the only way to be a vessel is to have boundaries. And I feel like that's really key for creatives and creative businesses, is being the whole idea of being a vessel and what that really means when it comes to boundaries.
That's beautifully said.
You do that so well. Like, you do it very well. And like I said, I really admire how you've done this from the beginning, and I think people have a lot of respect for you. Like, you may think that people think you're, prideful or whatever, but from my standpoint, I'm like, I like have a lot of respect for her, like a lot. And so do you mind to share a little bit about the Hope Eden like event and like your heart with that? Because I'm a huge I don't know if mental health advocate is the word. I just really care about it. Like, I have a lot of history with my own journey, my family. Anytime that I see somebody showing up for people in this space, like again, more respect, more like admiration for that person. So I just wanted to like kind of speak to that for just a second.
Thank you for your kindness, first off. I feel that I could never enter this space and not honor that 6 months before I started, I was in a treatment center. Like, that would feel like such a denial of why I even had something to care about again. So when I was out of treatment and I got back home, after the first tattoo I did was a semicolon on my own wrist.
Yes. Yeah.
So I did that on myself with no stencil, and I was just like in my parents' basement, like just cruising along. It's like so fat and like not like it's just not a good like semicolon, but I love it. And I remember kind of sitting there looking at it, and I needed it so badly. And I was like, I need this because I need to remember every day to stay here. And I had this little check with myself of, if I had any opportunity in my life to help people make this promise, I will do it. I will do as many of these as I possibly can. And again, I didn't think I'd be a tattooer. So it was very like my heart was speaking something, but I didn't have any vision of where it could go. Then the tattooing just kept growing. And I always had this thing where I did free semicolons, or I would do like $20 semicolons if they didn't have an appointment already. Like they would just come in, it would just be quick, and I would just do them. And then I was going to do it during 2020. I had decided that I was going to dedicate Mental Health Awareness Month and Suicide Prevention Week to taking this craft where we have this really rare opportunity to permanently help someone see something new on their skin. And I think that it would be a forfeit of some of our work and its value if we didn't offer it to people in a beautiful way. So I decided to make Hope Eden. Kind of started off first where like it was really just me, and I like hunkered down, did like 120 in 1 week, and I was just doing semicolons, the word hope and the Star of Bethlehem, which I have here. And I was just like kind of seeing where it would go over and over, just making something new. And then it just has continued. I just had the biggest one, which was this last May, and I had 11 tattooers there with me. We had a big concert after, so it was just like a whole day. We tattooed like 140 people in 6 hours, and then I think like 700 plus people came to the concert part.
Oh my gosh.
Which was just like a celebration of life.
Wow.
And it was the first time I've ever tattooed with that many people in a room. First time I've ever let other people hold my baby. Like,
yes, that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
It changed me in every way I can imagine.
Yeah.
It has changed my life. So now I know I've tattooed, I think like 900 semicolons in my career. And the word hope is my handwriting. So I know that there's at least like 600 people with the word hope and the Star of Bethlehem, first sign of hope and light, are all over the city. So people just walk around, they're like, hope.
Yes.
And it starts with like a wave that makes me just want to weep. I see people out all the time, and I'll see like their star, or they'll tag me in something. And I just can't believe that something like the smallest seed that I could ever imagine was like me in that basement with like an Amazon tattoo kit.
Yeah.
And I was like so ignorant, and I was like, I just want to live. Like, I just want to try something. And then I remember like maybe like 2 years ago, where I looked down at my wrist, and it was the first time I realized that like I don't need this anymore. Like, I don't think about it. And now it's like the memory of what used to be my daily struggle. And it doesn't feel like that. And I've had one of the most beautiful stories is I have a girl who I really focus a lot of my work towards self-harm transformations as well, or scar transformations.
Love it.
And my first Hope Eden, we have the photographer, videographer, my assistant, like my tattoo assistant in the room, and a girl comes in, and she like lifts part of her dress and her whole leg is cut, but they're healed, but they've been there for a long time. And she said she wanted hope like in the center of the scars. And like the room stood still, but like in a beautiful way. And we just like sat with her. And I remember being like, this is why I do this work. Like if I can do this, I'll do this forever. Like I'll do it as long as God allows me to. I'll do this. Like I feel so much purpose here. And then she came back for my first scar transformation week. And I covered all the scars with a big floral piece. And then at this last Hope Eden, I hadn't seen her in 2 years or in a year and a half. We randomly had some openings and she drove like 2 hours to get there. And she popped up out of nowhere. She was my last client. And she got the Star of Bethlehem. And she sat there and she said, I didn't tell you this before, but I wasn't done cutting when I first met you. But after that appointment, I made a decision. I've never touched myself again. I've been doing it for like 15 years. And she showed me that her whole body, there's nothing she's touched. Because once she saw something, she kept seeing the group of girls that surrounded her and said, oh, we love your leg. We like love this. You're okay. Like, this is not disgusting to us. We understand. Like, we just sat in this space. So I don't know. She's kind of become my anthem, my mascot. Like, you're the one that showed us all why we show up every year for this.
Wow.
And I'm gearing up I'm going to do it a little different in September this year. It's Suicide Prevention Week. And I'm just doing scars this time.
Okay.
And I'm really looking forward to it. There is a joy from it that I can't express. And I think, well, one of the last steps in recovery, or 12 steps, which is based on the Beatitudes, is you offer back freely what you've been given.
Yeah.
And I take that to my heart so deeply. I believe in service. I believe in like being with people in those spaces. This feels like the heartbeat of God. It feels like I understand their ache and their pain, and I want to be there because he let me offer it to myself with the machine first time, and that I get to do it with other people. It just is, it's unexplainable. It really is.
You're such a beautiful soul. Like this whole conversation, I'm like, this has inspired me for the week. Like not even for the day, like for the entire week. But I love like how you've connected such a deep part of who you are to your business, and allowing that to be something that is overflowed to people. My mom took her life whenever I was 16. I don't know if you know this, but ever since,
I remember.
Yeah. And so ever since that, I've made it like my life's goal to shine as bright as I can for other people, to show them that they're loved, to show them that there's hope, to show them that they need to stay, you know? And it's such like a taboo topic, but then like also there has been a lot of progress over the years. But I also see like a lot of people just like identifying with their pain, and like that's how it will always be for them. And I believe that like there's a better way for that. Like, yes, your pain is valid. We need to feel this, but you don't have to live with this forever, you know? And I feel like that's exactly what you do, like with this event, and your intention to change people's lives through what you do is to show them that like you don't have to identify with with brokenness. You don't have to identify with this pain. Yes, you faced hard things, and yes, it's hard, but there is hope, and I'm a testament of that, you know? It's just beautiful, man.
And I want to speak to something you said earlier. I've never walked into a room that you're in and not felt better and filled with light.
No.
And during like the darkest time of my life, you're one of the only people that looked me in the eyes and didn't make me feel small. And I watched how everyone talked to me, and you always made me feel like there was more. and you're living out what you said you hoped you are. And I just wanted to tell you that.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
My favorite part of Hope Eden is that the whole point, all the money we raise, it goes into different funds at different counseling centers so that you can
Okay.
go start counseling for free if you can't afford it. And
Wow.
I 100% believe that one of the first steps, we've made a massive progress in mental health, being able to talk about it. That it's
Yes.
not taboo, but
Right.
we've gone so much into that space now that it's like, well, this is my identity. It's who I am for the rest of my life. And I'm like, I think that's a denial of the fact that you are like beautifully and wonderfully made. And this might be here. Like you might remember and know this part of you, but it's not all of you.
Right.
And there are pieces of you that are whole and there are pieces
Yes.
that are broken, and it doesn't, you're not an incomplete like puzzle that's just going to be shattered for the rest of your life. You were in the making of something. And
Mm.
so I believe
Oh,
so much in reminding people, like, I believe it starts with hope, because hopelessness is the part where you're just like, well, I guess this is who I am. You
yeah.
accept after hopelessness.
Right.
I want them to start to see, like, wait, joy is an option I can hold.
Yes.
I can hold on to hope. I can feel sad and hopeful. I can feel broken and hopeful. Like you can hold them. They're in two hands.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I'm a massive, I didn't think I would ever do the work I'm doing until I knew I was in the space ready to do it.
Mm.
And I believe the same for you, that it's like I never thought that I'd become like a source of like mental health like advocacy, because I was like, I don't think anyone should be looking towards me as like any reference. But now I'm like, no, I think people want to look towards someone who's willing to say they're not okay. Like
Right.
it's that simple.
And you have that gift of understanding. And that's another thing. It's like when you get in that dark place, you're like, no one understands. No one
Yeah.
understands. No one will understand. But if you can like be that safe place for someone, like, of course they would, like, you should speak up. You should create that space for someone. And so I'm glad that you have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for it.
This was something that I did want to touch on, was like how you run your business, like being led by the Spirit, and like obviously being a follower of Jesus, like that has a big impact on your life. And so how do you, a lot of people feel, I'm sure, that like that's not a place that like a Holy Spirit could infiltrate and take control, but I very much disagree with that and believe that like you can be led by the Spirit in your business. So is there anything like you could speak to that, like maybe for other Christian entrepreneurs that maybe feel a little uneasy, taking up space in the business world with the Lord? Like how does that work and how do you approach that?
Yeah. That's a wonderful question. I thought that I knew what was holy. And so in the beginning I was like, okay, to honor God, I know there's specific images like I won't do. And that was like kind of how I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to honor him. I'm going to figure out what things are an absolute no. Like I'm not going to do demonic things. I'm not going to do blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
And then and this story kind of answers it in a full. This is the beginning of my career, but I had moved to Nashville at this point. And a really good friend of mine who was an atheist asked me to tattoo a ghost. And I remember immediately being like, no, like, I was like, no, like, I can't, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Like, I felt it in my spirit. I was like, no, I just don't feel comfortable doing that kind of imagery. And I felt so proud of myself. I was like, look at me, like, really representing the Lord. And then I just, for like a week, I could not get this image out of my mind. I couldn't get it out of my mind. And I was like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, I don't know what's happening. So I had this moment with God and I was praying and praying. And I felt this very clear word of, I made everything. Always ask me first, because I can make anything mine again. Rachel. So he said, I want you to design it as the Holy Ghost. So I said, okay, I'll do it. But it was so specific. It's like, I can make anything mine again, Rachel. I made it all. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And so I designed this like cute little ghost, but like the guy has no idea. like what my heart is behind it. So he comes in, I'm tattooing him. The conversation comes up about faith, and I tell him like why I love the Lord and why there is no compromise or denial in me of who he is. And if I have a question, it's not of questioning him. It's you cannot rip me from who he is. You can't. And but I spoke in a way of like, this is the truth I know, but I'm not going to demonize you because you don't know it yet.
Right.
Like very, very clear difference between the way I communicated it. And all of a sudden I felt the Holy Spirit in the room, like such a clear moment of something like fell in the room. He turned his head and his body was kind of shivering. And I looked down, I stopped tattooing. I just see tears, like a puddle falling over the side of the table. Like literally a full puddle on my floor. So I stopped tattooing and I was like, what's going on? And he turned to me and said like a statement. And it was the most beautiful thing that changed my career, changed the way I approach my work with the Lord. And he said, I've never wanted to know God more than the one you just described to me.
Wow.
And he turned back and kept weeping. And I just felt God say like, I can make anything mine again. All of this is mine. I'm asking you to be with me. And I would rather than be here with you getting something I don't love that I turned back to me than somewhere else. So ask me, because it's about who I send to you, not what I have them do. So in that, it's about obedience. So my discernment, my like internal discernment told me no. And he said, I have wisdom now. The wisdom is going to come in, and I want you to make choices that won't logically make sense. And then the other big thing is that God had very clearly made a boundary in the beginning of my career that I was only supposed to do 3 tattoos, and 3 tattoos per person. And I was so angry.
I remember this.
Yes. And I was so mad. So I was like, no. And I just denied it. And so I started going to 4. And there was a moment, every time I got to 4, I felt the peace leave my whole job. I could feel the transaction had become, I'm everything you want instead of this is special. Like there was no sacredness in it. And so then I said, okay, God, I'm going to honor it. And I've honored it ever since. But with like, there's a measure of, there's like, what is 3? Like a whole sleeve is 1, but you do it in 10 appointments. So there's specifics to it, but it's so funny. I said, okay, I'm going to honor you. I turned it to 3. My income increased by 3 in 1 month, when logic in the world would have told me that limit is actually going to minimize what you offer. Wow. And I just kept seeing it grow, 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 grow. And what I see now is God was protecting me, because I can barely do 3 for anyone now.
Yeah.
But he was setting up a system where like, I have something special I want you to offer, because I'm going to be there with you. Like he's the special thing. And then I'm the special thing under him. Like that's the special thing about Eden. And if they don't know God, they'll say I'm the special thing, but he's the special thing.
I'm just like in awe because it's rare that I can come across someone that I feel like is running a really great business and is also being sensitive to the Spirit. Like, you know, like even in my own business, I'm like, am I being led by the Spirit? Dear God, like, please help me. You know, like, you know, it can get very swirly. But that's a great story. And I feel like you're exactly right. Like that whole question was summed up in that story of, yes, there's discernment. And yes, like I feel like in that moment, the discernment that you had, like attuned your ear to the Lord, you know? And then he was like, actually, now that you're here, this is what I actually want you to do. You know, like it made you stop and check, you know, before you're just like, yeah, whatever. Or no, you know, like you were like, you checked it with the Lord and then he surprised you. And like, what a fun way to run a business. Like, why would we not want to do that? Like there's risk in everything. Like risk it on something that is like worthwhile and meaningful and actually at the core of your being. Like I think that that's something that I find so stale in running a business is like, I need to take this course. I need to do this. I need to learn how to do that. I need to market. I need to da da da. And like, yes, I'm not saying that that's not something that we don't know how to do, because even you're like, you need to learn your craft, like
Yeah.
that's important. But it can get really stale if a big part of you is being led by the Spirit and following Jesus, and then you just like don't involve that in your day to day with your business. Like, that just doesn't really make sense. Like I said, you've attuned your ear to hear the Lord uniquely for what you do, and like you are his hands and feet in this earth, like even with this big like passionate thing that you feel is like such an extension of you as a person, like you are an extension of him as well. So that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You said earlier, like our hands aren't the only thing doing the work. And I
Yeah.
believe it's not just our heart or our head. Like beneath that, like we know the Lord. I was made for something beautifully
Right.
with the Lord who's speaking through me.
Yes.
And it just happens to come through my hands, but it came through him, like the way I was made like him. And so us being able to acknowledge that our hands are just doing something that he's already a part of is
Yeah.
beautiful. And I think um, it's such a validated. I understand the fear of including him because it requires so much trust. But I would rather do the honorable thing with him, the harder thing with him, and I have made the mistake many times. Every time I turn back, and he's there to teach us. It's not that you have to get it right one time in one big way. There's multiple ways to just be taught. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's my encouragement is he's there to walk with you. It's a new thing.
Well, I was going to ask what's next for True Eden, but you mentioned the Suicide Prevention Week. Is there anything else coming up that people should like look out for from you, or is it just more of the same gloriousness that you are?
I'm in the space right now of realizing I don't think I'm supposed to be alone anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my heart is preparing to see my baby held by many different people. And so, what I mean by that is, I'm hopeful and looking towards a part of this where I am so surrounded by people who needed a place to feel safe again to make things that they forget I started it. I would like there to be so many names that they forget my name. And it's easy to say that. And now I'm in the center of, wait, am I actually willing to like not be holding this as my own for the rest of my life, like suffocating
Yeah.
a little bit?
Yeah.
So the future of True Eden is that True Eden's growing and I'm getting ready to watch it grow. And as it's done before, I know that um, it probably won't look like what growth looks like for other shops, but I believe there are people out there just like me who need someone to say, I'll help you.
Mm.
And so I'm ready to take that next step, which will be me stepping back a little bit more and spreading what True Eden is.
Wow.
And in that, it's me claiming the fact that my life outside of the studio is just as valuable. And so, really, just creating balance in my life
It's good.
and out of the survival and focusing on my home life and my mind and my heart. I'm so far from the girl I was, but there's still pieces that feel very lingering, and they're usually when I leave my studio. So I want my life to feel like my safe place.
Yeah.
So that's a personal thing with True Eden I'm going to be doing.
Wow.
But yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
like a running machine at this point, and I want to honor all the parts of it that are meant to grow.
I feel like you will have clear direction, even just from the Lord, to like navigate all of that, because as precious as this is to you, like it's so precious to him as well.
Yeah.
And I just feel like his delight and pleasure over what you do, and it's going to be so perfectly aligned. So I'm excited to see how it all happens and unfolds. It'll be great. Yes. Okay, well, how can people connect with you? I'm sure they're gonna, if people haven't already connected with you after this episode, I'm sure that they will now that they've listened. So where can they connect with you?
My Instagram is True Eden Studio. I have a hard time with DMs just because most of them are about booking and my books are closed. But I love when people comment something fun on a story. Like, I love interacting with people like that. Any like real information can be found in my newsletter or my website.
Okay.
And I just kind of go from there.
Awesome.
The best way to like be in person and like interact and be a part of the community that we call the Apple Club.
Cute.
Someone's called it the Edenites.
Cute.
Come to a Hope Eden. Like,
yes.
Come to the next one next May and come hang out with a big group of people who just want to feel alive for the day.
Yes. And then the September thing, is that open for people to come to as well? Or
that will be private because they're
okay.
scar transformations, but I will be opening the form for anyone to submit who has scars.
Okay.
And then I put it through like a system that just randomly selects the 10 that are going to come.
Okay. Got it.
So yeah.
Amazing.
But as of right now, that's my plan.
Okay, that's great. And when do you open your books? Do you announce when you open your books, or do you just like do it like Taylor Swift style, like secret, and then just like midnight it's open?
Never. I would never do this to people. I felt God released me from just doing custom pieces.
Yeah. About
a year and a half ago, I was really struggling and just feeling I couldn't hold up all the stories anymore in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've transitioned to mostly doing pre-drawn flash where I design pieces and I just pray that God already assigned who's supposed to have them. And I put them on my website and whoever buys them first gets them.
Okay.
So I do that twice a year. And so I have the next one will come out in March. It's March and July usually.
Okay.
Those are the 2 months. And then every July, once a year, I open my books for custom and flash. Nice. And I take on as many requests come in within an hour. And right now, like a couple weeks ago, that happened. And so I'm reviewing all of those, and I take about 10 to 20 projects a year.
Okay.
I'm having a very hard time deciding right now. So I'm like, I think like 800 came in or something. So I'm trying to, it's really hard to read each story and figure out, okay, of course I would say yes, but like, God, am I supposed to do this one? Because this is 12 hours with one person in pain. So
wow. Yeah.
That's kind of how my system works right now. It's the only way I've found works well. Again, I know it's untraditional, but it's the only way I've known to meet the demand and still have sanity.
Well, I guess that's it. I guess for now, maybe you'll have to come back because I really enjoyed myself. Really enjoyed talking to you.
I would come back anytime. I loved it.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart, your wisdom, telling us stories about who you are. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening today. If you enjoyed the episode, I would love for you to go leave a review. You can connect with us on Instagram and Threads at Wonder Creative Pod. Theme song for the podcast was written and sung by me and produced by Andrew Mindy. We'll catch you next time.